Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. My son is crying in the next room as soon as I hit record.
Oh, no.
It's fine. It'll probably be fine.
It'll probably be fine.
It'll probably be fine.
You won't have to go and settle him for an hour.
You're not broadcasting the show like in there over like a PA.
Yeah. Well, how's he going to learn, Tom? They don't teach this stuff in school, so
yeah. I mean, they say that when a baby is in utero, that you play Mozart or whatever near the womb, so the baby.
I play the sound of my own voice. I just pump it in like it's a like a dubstep track. Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Just me yelling about Donald Trump in sonorous tones.
Indeed. I mean, we're not going to talk about Donald Trump anymore. I mean, how good was the fight between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson?
I heard it was a shit show.
Absolute theater.
I say, unfortunately, the result wasn't that they both killed each other, so it didn't turn out how I wanted.
Yeah, so it's funny. So Mike Tyson, I'm pretty sure, is a convicted rapist, if I'm not incorrect.
No. I don't think so.
At least I was reading up on it the other day, like allegations of domestic violence against his first wife. I don't know about.
I wouldn't say he's convicted. No.
I look at the box's 1992 rape conviction.
Yep, there we go.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
Mike Tyson is a convicted
not a great
rapist.
guy.
Yeah, bad guy.
Not a great guy.
And
I did not know he. How is he not cancelled? How
because
did he?
Patriarchy, Adam.
In 1992,
yeah.
Everyone's like, "Oh well, whatever."
Yeah, he bit a guy's ear off on television, and people were like, "Give him another chance."
Yeah, he hits other people.
He was cute in The Hangover, so
yeah, he hits.
I heard the fight was staged. Someone was like, "Oh, like Jake Paul's like he's just holding back, like it's all fucking rigged."
Wait, Jake Paul was holding back?
So basically, Jake Paul did this interview afterwards where they were like, were you sort of giving... I can't believe we're talking about this because I have no interest in Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, or fighting, but here we are.
It's sometimes nice to just change tacks, George.
You know
don't
what?
Have to
it's going to
worry
be...
about the world.
Hey, bro, have you ever done DMT? Like, we are taking an absolutely different tact. We're going the Joe Rogan route because obviously that's what the people want. But yeah, so someone has to be pretty annoying for you to want to side with the convicted rapist. But there was this interview with Jake Paul where he basically said like, oh yeah, like I was holding back, like, he was like fighting survival and like, I just wanted to give people a good show kind of thing. Like I was holding, but like the guy's like, he's like 60 or something. Like
he's fighting
58.
a guy. He's 31 years his senior.
Yeah.
And hasn't, I thought, was it like 20 years since he's fought at this
it's been a hot
like
minute.
20 years or something. Yeah.
So,
and also
congratulations, you beat up an old man.
He was talking about how like in June he needed like some massive like blood transfusion. He had like some massive health episodes. Like the guy's an old man. Like yes, he is the former heavyweight champion of the world. But
he would
like,
still,
he is also
to be clear,
he beat the ever-loving shit out of me. Yeah, no, he would. You know, it'd be like it'd be like if I got into the ring with Mike Tyson, it'd be like that scene in Doctor Strange where Tilda Swinton punches his soul out of his body. That's what would happen.
No. But did you both see the objectively best thing to come out of that whole fight schmozzle?
No, what's that?
Which was the interview, like the pre-match interview between Mike Tyson and his son, I believe.
Okay,
was
tell
there, like, reporting for Netflix. I don't know, like, they had Netflix on the mic or whatever. And, they were talking and, he was asking him questions and then it wrapped, like, the questions don't matter, but it wrapped up and had this lovely, like, moment of, said, like, I love you, Dad, love you too, son, kiss on the cheek, a quick hug, and then Mike Tyson walks away. And as he walks away, we widen to reveal that he's wearing no pants.
He saw his bum.
He's just
I heard
like,
about this.
Like, not even arseless chaps. They were just, like, arseless shorts, if that's even a thing.
As in, was he wearing undies or, like, just...
Adam, like, that's the thing. I don't follow boxing, so I could have, honestly, seeing it, I could have believed that they do the whole match in G-bangers. Like, that's what his ass looked like. It looked like he was wearing either a G-string or no pants. And I was like, why have I seen Mike Tyson's whole ass right now? Why is it all over the internet? And I saw those two clips out. Like, I love that I saw them like separate from each other, and then when I saw it together, like, because I saw, he talked to that guy. That's great. Hey, there's Mike Tyson's ass. What? Then it goes from I love you, Dad, love you too, son. Walk away, no pets this whole time. Like, why?
Outstanding.
Because Netflix
Incredible.
and millions of dollars. Apparently, it's one of the most watched things ever on Netflix.
For people who could have watched it, it was apparently buffering horrendously the whole time.
Yeah.
So people were saying the experience was like waiting to buffer Mike Tyson's ass, buffer. It's like, what the hell is going on? So yeah, for people who hyped up this exclusive live sport event on Netflix, they really fucked getting people to watch all of it. But
Yeah, who could have thought that Netflix wouldn't be on top of live streaming? That's crazy. So okay, all right, we've got the chips out of the way.
We have.
Okay, now it's time for
one ass to another.
Now it's time for your fucking vegetables. Okay.
And the vegetables are the circus that is beginning.
You don't get your fucking. Let me tell you, you don't get your fucking blueberries. You don't get your
Why is he
fucking
holding a
strawberries.
knife? He's holding a knife.
Please put the knife
put the
down.
knife
I will not.
Are you allowed to have that?
It's a knife. What do you mean?
That looks like a flick knife.
No, it's not a flick knife. It's a folding knife. It's not
It's a
flick
multi-tool.
knife.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You
George
will
has a
get your
knife at his
strawberries
desk.
when you've finished your fucking broccoli, mate. Okay, I say this as a father. I love you, but you're done when I say we're done.
Please tell me you don't point a knife at your son. when you're
How
trying to
else
get him
are we going to get him to eat broccoli, Adam, if not under pain of death?
Well, you could appoint
Spoken like someone who's never had kids.
You could appoint someone to try and do that who's got literally no experience in that area, such as Matt Gaetz.
Okay, yeah, we can start with Matt Gaetz. So Matt Gaetz is bafflingly a sex criminal and also now going to be the Attorney General of the United States. So people might be familiar with Matt Gaetz's work. You might have seen him in such films as I'm probably almost certainly guilty of trafficking a 17-year-old across state lines for sex, otherwise known as there's a word for that. There's
Sex trafficking?
Yeah, sex trafficking. Yeah, that's and like
But
correct
he was
me if I'm
found-
wrong, Tom. Correct me if I'm wrong.
There was
Is the Attorney General of the United States supposed to be a suspected, nay, probable sex trafficker? Is that probably not right? Like that's probably.
I mean,
not what they're...
the founding fathers didn't write it in the document.
You're right. You know what? There's no rule saying that the dog
Yeah.
can't play basketball.
Exactly.
So...
So yeah, they didn't write it into the Constitution, but they felt like a lot of things. It seems the founding fathers thought we don't need to say the president shouldn't be an absolute craven, like serial criminal. The Attorney General doesn't shouldn't be a sex trafficking pedophile. Like, we don't have to say those things.
It should, it's a real Airbud situation. So
yeah.
I just want to clarify for legal reasons. Matt Gaetz, a court did. There was not enough evidence to find him guilty.
It's not that there wasn't enough evidence. They declined to pursue charges, and
They declined to pursue charges. Whatever, same thing.
And Adam, I've seen the fucking text messages where he's like paying, he's paying hookers, like saying it's for like it says for like school books or something. Like he's like Venmoing them money for drugs, for sex. Yeah, and it's like for education, and it's like sending. It's like the guy.
I'll have 3 educations, please.
The guy, yeah. You know how you go $700 for education on a Saturday night at 4 a.m. You know how you do.
I mean, I do remember in uni textbooks being really expensive.
Textbooks are expensive. That is fair. That is true.
You just have to buy one a week.
Yeah.
For
every Saturday night forever. Yeah, the guy is a whilst his legal, he hasn't been found guilty of any crimes, anyone with a brain could see that he almost certainly did those crimes. Of which he was nearly convicted. So the other thing was there was a house ethics investigation being pursued against him, right? For all of these things that we've just talked about, the sex, the drugs, the rock and roll, the guy's fucking Rolling Stones over here in the 60s, as a sitting member of Congress. The House ethics investigation was dropped because after Trump announced that he was going to be his pick for Attorney General, he's like, great, well, I don't need to be a member of the House, resign, drops the mic. Now they can't continue with their House ethics investigation against him because he's not a member of Congress. And I was just like, this is ludicrous that this guy, and it's not just that he's like manifestly unqualified to be Attorney General of the United States. He briefly served in private practice before turning to politics. So it's not as though he's had some extensive legal career or like a career as a prosecutor or any kind of like background that would enable him to serve as Attorney General, which is the chief law enforcement officer role. But like, everyone hates him. Like, he is the most unpopular member of Congress maybe ever.
Well, yeah.
Ted Cruz looks at Matt Gaetz and goes, what an asshole.
I mean, there have been, there is a silver, not a silver lining. What is it? A hope, perhaps. That
this will be good.
A Coke covered mirror, perhaps. Not a silver lining.
That the Senate won't actually endorse him because, as you said, no one in the political apparatus of America.
So this is a quote from Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska says, quote, I don't think it's a serious nomination for the Attorney General. We need to have a serious Attorney General, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to consider somebody that is serious. This one was not on my bingo card.
Yes, no. And I mean, this is... the reason why Trump's appointed him. So you're like, why did Trump appoint him? It's because, and we'll get to probably the larger story here, is that because he's a Trump loyalist. He has kissed the ring.
He's a piece of shit.
Bent the knee because and that's probably he's done that because he's a piece of shit.
And a lot of people are commenting saying like, oh, maybe he's advancing Gaetz because he doesn't think Gaetz is going to get the role and his second choice will be more. And I was like, no, I don't think
Trump's doing 4D chess.
Yeah,
no.
Trump is not doing any fucking 12D chess to try and like
House of Cards.
Game theory. Yeah. He's not Frank Underwood. He is as much of a sexual assaulter as the actor who plays Frank Underwood, but he is not Frank Underwood, the character in which he's plotting and scheming in a Machiavellian attempt to seize maximum power for himself. No, Trump is just like, I like the cut of that rapist's jib. Let's have him be the chief law enforcement officer of the country. That's all there is to it. And if he gets away with it, great. And he thinks he will, because as of now, they control the Senate. I think they landed on the House as well. Like,
what's the thing though, is they keep taking people out of the Senate. They've put a few, like, not just Gaetz, there's been another one or maybe one or two people that have been picked for various government positions that are within, those two arenas.
Which means they have to pull him out of the Senate, which means that seat is what needs to be
So the Republicans are like, oh, hang on, could you just stop yeeting people?
We haven't got enough senators for you to keep yeeting people out. And so they've got 53 seats in the Senate. And it seems like, looking at the most recent election results, they've reached the 218 for the majority. So they now have a supermajority. The Republicans hold the House, the Senate, the presidency, and the Supreme Court. So it's basically fucking anything goes at this point. So I really don't expect, like, Lisa Murkowski might be like, I don't know, I'm seriously concerned. But it's like, okay, well, they've got fucking, another two extra senators, that are expendable when it comes to Senate confirmations. Like, I have no doubt that if Trump really wants Matt Gaetz, did Beetlejuice just turn up at your house, Tom? What was all that lightning in the background?
Just biblical lightning, like the kind you see only in nature photographs.
Yeah,
that just happened. I don't know if the mic's picking up the thunder. That was fucking loud. Anyhow, yeah.
So yeah, they've got votes to spare, is my point. So whatever crazy fucking people that Trump is putting up, that's who he wants to get up. And so
and it's a real who's who of cunts.
Yeah, a real who's who of who's a fucking shithead.
Should we now have a look at that then? Let's go through.
Well, we can talk. So I've got this New York Times article up here which talks about the ones that have been announced. So obviously Matt Gaetz takes the cake as law offender in chief for the Attorney General position. They've announced Marco Rubio for state. Which is
the double down.
Marco Rubio, who's a real hawk on foreign policy, a real sort of quite a piece of shit, is now going to be running the State Department. Defense the Secretary for Defense.
Secretary of Defense is the wildest one.
Fucking crazy. This guy named Pete Hegseth, who is, Tom, do you know who Pete Hegseth is? Hegseth, sorry.
He's a Fox News host.
He is a weekend Fox News host. He's not even the A grade. He's the weekend guy.
Wow, he's not even like the Fox and Friends.
No,
with Brian or
no, he's not Brian Kilmeade or one of those.
No,
he's just the weekend guy for Brian Kilmeade, and now he's going to be in charge of the military, the largest military in all of human history.
Hey! He's a former U.S. serviceman. He has served, so obviously.
Adam,
he's well prepared to play 4D
Just because you can drive a tank doesn't mean you can drive the US military. It is a different vehicle.
How hard could it be, George? How hard can it be?
Said Hannibal, crossing the mountains with a bunch of elephants.
I did not realize
Homeland Security is Kristi Noem, old dog shooter in chief. CIA, John Ratcliffe. DNI, this is actually fucking crazy. Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, she's been sucking real hard up the Trump.
Okay, so like 5 years ago, Tulsi Gabbard was a Democrat, and she was a Democrat who was on Joe Rogan, and she's like, I really like you, Tulsi. Like, I really love you. Like, I love how you like suck up to Assad and like have all these weird and to the extent to which like people were concerned that she might be like a Russian asset because she like. Of her own accord, like decided to go to Syria and it was like defending Assad. Yeah. People were worried that she was like a cutout for the Syrian government and like, Russia might have some involvement there. And now she runs the DNI. The DNI, that position, that office.
What does DNI stand for? Director of National Intelligence?
Yes, correct. That role was created after 9/11, basically to ensure that the various departments across US intelligence were speaking to each other correctly, that there was a central place through which information about threats, terroristic threats, could be exchanged to maximize the safety of the American people. It is one of the most powerful positions in the American government. And to put someone who may be a fucking useful idiot at worst or Russian asset at best into that position might be the intelligence, like the GRU coup of the century. Like they're gonna put statues up in fucking in Russia of Tulsi Gabbard. Like this is crazy shit.
The stuff I've seen of Tulsi is some of the. I think she was on Chris. What's his name? Chris Williams or whatever. One of the big podcast hosts. Recently came to Australia actually. But anyway, she was talking to him about how the democratic. This is the whole democratic elite thing. Was like, oh yeah, and they like Biden's not running the show. It's the Democratic elite that are running the show, and they tell you how to vote. And I'm like, Tulsi, what you're describing
as a party,
a political party.
Yeah.
The Republicans do the same thing, as it turns out.
Yeah, they too.
And there's these jobs.
To vote for them.
There's this job called a whip, and what they go around is they whip people and tell them to vote in a specific way that the party wants. Like, are you just finding this out now?
It's like there's a whole apparatus around Biden who are actually like helping call the shots. I'm like, yeah, that's called government.
A staff.
That is how your political system works.
Yeah. Did you think the guy in the White House was just like shooting from the hip? Like, what did you think was happening?
Just the president just spends all day on Wikipedia, just like researching stuff. That's
where
how president works.
Yemen? He's just sitting there going, where is Yemen and do I want to bomb it? ChatGPT. Enter.
Or have I already?
Have I? It's my first day as president. Have I bombed Yemen yet? Question mark.
Thank you, Meta AI. Who else is in the anti-swamp brigade?
Oh yeah, Health and Human Services is being run by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The worm himself. The worm has seized control of the controls, and he is running the show. The worm has Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has announced an all-worm policy for Health and Human Services.
And for people who don't know who Robert
you get a worm. You get a worm.
People think Kennedy, they think, Bobby Kennedy, they think the presidency, he's assassinated.
They think Chappaquiddick that time. Yeah, he drove into a lake and then killed the woman he was with, and then they covered it up. Yeah, huh?
Oh, what? And I'm sure that obviously Robert F. Kennedy's got extensive health experience and understands the importance of and the nuances of medicine.
I mean, certainly
Right.
he has a lot of health experience in spouting his opinions on it and getting people killed. That's kinds of experience.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, great. I hope people like vaccines while they're still around. Before
Well,
he just
you say that, Tom. You joke, but I did hear on
I'm not joking.
It Could Happen Here, which is a podcast about impending fascism, which I think now needs to be called It Did Happen Here.
It
happened here
right now. Put down the podcast and
it happened.
the Capitol.
So basically what they talk about is pointing to people towards resources where they can, for people who are transgender, basically stockpiling, basically exactly what you were saying, not with vaccines, obviously, but like, for people who need gender affirming care and require, testosterone and medications, to basically, here's how you can stockpile up on these now. Here's homebrew, ways of like creating some of this stuff for yourself if you need to. Like, it is getting to a really fucking dark place. Yeah. And I don't see any reason why vaccines would be excluded from that. Like, it may be the case that you are not able to get standard vaccines for your children now because you've got the anti-vaccine guy in charge of all the vaccines. Like, we are living in, I thought 2016 was the darkest timeline. This is the darkest timeline on steroids. Everyone's walking around with a snidely whiplash mustache version of themselves, twirling and laughing. Like, this is crazy next level shit compared to the first Trump administration.
Yeah. And should we, have we got through all the what am I trying to say? The warm-up acts for the final two, or are we still going through the warm-up acts?
No. I mean, yeah, some other ones, like some kind of normie-ish guys like Doug Burgum, Elise Stefanik for the UN. That seems kind of crazy to me because she's like very much not qualified for that. Elise Stefanik was famous earlier in the year for hauling all of the university presidents in front of Congress and basically interrogating them about their policy towards Israel and hate speech. And, She didn't really so much set a trap as just like asking basic questions, and they all fumbled over their dicks and kind of made fools of themselves around hate speech. So and so now she's going to represent America to the world. And that seems like more than enough qualifications to do that, is just having asked some inconvenient questions of university presidents. So
I think it's also extremely frightening, even though he was there last time, so it's no surprise really, but to see Stephen Miller back.
Fucking Stephen Miller. Santa Monica fascist Stephen Miller.
Like, like seeing him do some of the campaign kind of stage shows, like speaking to the super PACs and stuff like that. I was like, oh, this isn't even like, oh, this harkens to like, oh, there's similarities to like Nazi speeches of the 30s. I'm like, oh, this just feels like I'm watching it happen now. This is terrifying. Like his stances on immigration and stuff like that are
terrifying.
So very bad that he is anywhere near any kind of seat of power.
But these are all but minnows for the main event.
All entrees.
Entrees.
Just a little, it's only a wafer thin. Just a taster.
And of course, the big announcements were that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy will be leading it's kind of a joke, but the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE.
Yes. Yeah. I wonder, do we think Elon came up with that?
Tom,
coincidental.
Tom, I would bet my entire life savings, I would bet all the money I have ever made in my life that Elon Musk came up with that.
He came up with that.
Not only that, I bet all of my future earnings, my earning potential for the rest of my working career, all the money I may make in future, I also bet on Elon Musk having been the one who came up with that name. Because as you are well aware, Elon Musk, as well as being the world's richest man and an indefatigable asshole, is also running a pump and dump scheme with a cryptocurrency called Dogecoin. Dogecoin was created as a joke to satirize the abundance of the preponderance of shit coins that had entered the market at that point, and capitalized on the popular meme of a doge, a dog, in order to basically say how ridiculous the cryptocurrency market had gotten. I'm going to create a cryptocurrency that is based on a meme And how ridiculous is that?
He didn't create it.
No, he didn't create it. Someone else created
in
it.
classic Elon Musk fashion. Someone else
did the hard work and created it.
Gets involved and makes it huge.
And basically, he saw it was a meme coin, a shit coin, and obviously has a large personal stake in it, and is pumping it at every available opportunity in order to realize some kind of massive gain from it. Pump and dump is what that's called. If you pump something up and then dump the stock.
He's been pumping it though for years. It's not like it's a like. Is it a pump and dump if he's been doing it for 7 years? Like I don't know.
You can pump and dump multiple times. It's not a one and done.
It just feels like unchecked insider trading.
Yes. Like it feels that way because it is.
Because it is.
So what is the Department of Government Efficiency? Is it a real department? No, it's going to not be a department. It's effectively they're getting these guys in as contractors. And Ramaswamy,
you know what the government needs? More contractors. That's the way to an efficient government, is to have two guys performing one guy's role, which is to find efficiencies in government. And the way you do that is you hire a bunch of consultants. That's the way you get more efficiency in government.
Yep.
Ramaswamy in particular was incredibly, his whole platform, because he ran for Republican nomination. His whole platform was, I am going to remove 75% of the government, basically.
Cool and normal. Cool, fun and normal.
By the way, the US, the whole point is to reduce government spending and overreach or perceived overreach. I mean, the US government does spend something like $6.2 trillion a year, which is a lot. Could there be some efficiencies? Perhaps.
Almost certainly.
But,
do I trust
just to say that there would be no ill effects?
Yeah. Do I trust Vivek Ramaswamy to find them? Absolutely not.
No.
And just be like, you know what we don't need? Department of Education. Don't need it. Get rid of it. Wrap it up.
To say that there would be no ill effects by shrinking the US government by like 3/4 to 2/3 or whatever number they're floating around.
Elon Musk was floating around. It's so dumb. There's this clip where this guy's like, how much do you think you can reduce the $6 trillion budget by? And Elon Musk's like, I don't know, like 2 trillion. And the guy's like, 2 trillion, yay, big number. And I was like, what are you cheering about? You morons, you alabaster morons. What are you cheering? And Elon Musk has gone on record saying like, this will cause hardship. But like, we all need to like, sort of pull together, and it's for the betterment of the country long term. And it's like the audacity of a guy whose net worth went up $70 billion last week, telling people to like pitch in and like we have to tighten our belts. The idea that the richest man in the world is going to tell us to tighten our belts is going to be hardship. But you could personally, out of the $70 billion that you just made last week as a result of your proximity to the Trump campaign, could turn around and personally fill the $70 billion, use that $70 billion to fill the gap of the cuts that you're making. You could personally pay for it.
Yeah, it would be very funny if he somehow discovers the concept of like a wealth tax being good. Like as his role of the government efficiency person, be like, what would make us run more
we really need to tax these billionaires.
Have more money to do these programs because we're so underfunded. And like, but like the 70 billion I made last week, like that would totally do it. Oh my God. Like just somehow just tricks himself into doing the right thing.
Yeah, no, I don't see it happening. But it was like that thing where they were a charity was like, with all this money you could like solve world hunger. He's like, if you could give me a plan for solving world hunger, I would absolutely do it. And they're like, here it is. And he's like, get fucked. Have you tried going and fucking yourself? Like,
yeah,
for $60 billion, you could solve world hunger. He made $70 billion last week. He could give that money. He could solve world hunger and still be $10 billion better off than he was 1 week ago when he was still the richest man in the world. Like, do you understand how much money this guy's worth? And he's going to be the one to be like, you got to turn off your heating, Susan. There's no way that you can heat during the winter. That's crazy. You just got to tighten your belt, Susan. Yes, we bring you meals because you physically can't leave the house. You're just going to have to make some hard choices.
Yeah. He's got big Lucille Bluth energy. He's very much like,
what kind of banana be? $10?
What could your heating cost? $1,000?
$1,000 a week?
Like,
So this is the thing, right? So there was on Insiders this morning, I think one of the guests or panelists framed it quite well. In 2016 they were draining the swamp. Now they are
filling
nuking.
that swamp full
They are
with swamp monsters.
Swamp monsters. They are nuking the swamp. This is like they wanted to destroy the quote unquote elite,
the deep
or whatever
state.
they want to they want to remove the deep state. They want to destroy the systems that are in place, and many people seem pretty keen for that in America. But I don't think anyone's grasped the reality. If you're a US voter, no one seems to have grasped the reality of what that actually will mean.
Well, they'll figure it out eventually.
And this is we've talked about it numerous times. This is all stuff that is classic fascist playbook. You fill all your key government positions with party loyalists.
With toadies, yes.
You get a supermajority, and then that there's no checks to your power. That is fascism.
John Bolton, a former national security advisor, said, talking back specifically about Gaetz, quote, must be the worst nomination for a cabinet position in American history. John Bolton is a Republican. There have been a lot of shitty cabinet secretaries in American history. John Bolton was probably one of them. Like that time where he got on CNN and accidentally admitted to doing coups in South America.
Yeah, I was going to say, between coups, he's had a moment to think about past appointees to
Gaetz is not only incompetent for this job, he doesn't have the character. He is a person of moral turpitude. Another anonymous GOP member told Axios, we wanted him out of the House. This isn't what we were thinking.
Yeah, we got to kick him out of Congress. All right, we'll give him a really powerful job.
No, that's not what
the question
so we'll
is,
promote him.
A lot of people have been saying, this is, and it is a fascist thing that they're doing. And, you could, with fascism, you can go sort of one of two ways, I think. You can sort of do what Germany did in the 1930s, and things kind of got better for the day-to-day. The economy did very well with Hitler. I will say that.
Well, they were recovering from a period of hyperinflation, and there's it's an extremely complicated minefield. You just skated over. But yes, go on.
But I'm just using this as an example, right? So, economic recovery under Hitler, great. But you could do that, or you could just disintegrate the fabric of the country and end up I don't know, a third world pariah. Yeah. Is the other option here with this fascist cabinet that they're putting together.
It's not
where no one actually knows how to run it. If you remove the whole bureaucracy, it's not necessarily going to be that things are going to get more efficient. It just, things will just potentially just fall apart.
Stop working. Yeah. It will. Sorry, go on, Tom.
I was going to fall apart, and then also all the economically it could all fall apart. So for people's day-to-days and cost of living and jobs and all those things that push people further and further into poverty and destitution, on top of all their crazy culture wars shit that they're just going to ram through, emboldening an army of racist, gun-toting psychopaths into just violence and chaos.
But see, the thing is, we know
really hyperbolic, but it's not too far a stretch.
We've seen what happens, like in the case of Liz Truss, where she, tried to push ahead her intensely neoliberal, borderline libertarian type, neocon agenda, and what happened is the economy tanked. We know what happens when you try and pork markets. We know what happens when governments make irresponsible moves with regards to their economy, especially when, they are foundational parts of the economy, like the US, like the UK, the bond markets freak out. People don't want to give money to a country that they think is disintegrating. And that, chokes up the flow of capital, which causes other problems. If you deport 11, 12, 13 million people out of the country, that is going to cause problems.
How do you even do that?
If you slap on 60% tariffs or 100% tariffs or 200% or 11 million % tariffs on everything, it will break the economy. These are not things of I'll have It really frustrated me the way the Democrats talked about this. Were like, it's a $4,000 a year sales tax. I was like, I don't know, that doesn't sound so bad. Like, no, what they are doing will break it will break capitalism. Like, it's not just that you won't live in a country where like, oh, your dishwasher will be more expensive. It's like, no, your fucking dishwasher company is going to go out of business. They're going to lay everyone off. It's going to cause a fucking Great Depression. You are going to be sitting around a burning barrel telling people about the end times and how this shit went down. If they enact these policies, it will ruin the world. Like, it's not just...
My question is like does that therefore mean that they will... Here's the question. Is it a case of like, well, people will be so unhappy, these people will be forced to resign, and
I love your confidence.
Or they'll get voted out. They'll get voted out, the next election cycle. Which is what's
I love that you think that there's going to be a next election cycle. Like, what do you think is happening? That people just go, they fucked up. We've got to vote the bums out, and he's just going to walk out of there. Like, I'm very fucking doubtful, my friend.
This is my question: is that will there be the next election? You've preempted it. You've already answered it. That's fine. Tom, what do you think?
Well, I mean, like these people surely don't have the integrity to resign in disgrace when they're like, we tried our crazy drain the swamp, move fast and break things policy, and it didn't work. So I'll resign. No, but it's even if we get to the next like US election and the country hasn't exploded, it's going to be a very frightening looking world given, Trump under current rules can't run again.
Yeah, it is not constitutional for him to have a third term. I would not be surprised to see him try.
And now we have the plot to Alex Garland's movie Civil War.
Yeah, that's literally how the plot of that movie unfolded. The president went for a third term, and everyone was like, no, that's not fucking constitutional. Stop it. And that's how the war started.
Yeah.
And an American Civil War, not good for anyone, because America fighting America's the one with all the guns. And it's bad.
Speaking of anyone, in Australia, there have been the ABC or Patricia.
I think I'm having an anxiety
Carvelis.
attack. It's actually stressing me out.
Don't do that. Let's move away from this.
Let's find out how it could happen here, George.
People have been theorising.
I need a Xanax.
Australian election. Last week we were talking about it. What does it mean for the Australian election? Interestingly, this week the ABC has picked up that Peter Dutton has already started dropping some zingers into various interviews and points where he gets to say things publicly, which is quite a lot because he's the leader of the opposition. Such as, let me find some of the quotes.
Can I just, before you do that, a quick message to Peter Dutton? Go fuck yourself. Don't do that. That's shit. You're shit, and I hate you. Go fuck yourself, Peter.
Now I've got to scroll down the article before... I
was giving you time.
Yep. And I listened to you
and
instead.
You squandered it.
Here we go. So he's on 2GB at the end of last week. He said, I think when I see a government that is more interested in pronouns than they are people, it starts to become a real problem.
Fuck you, Peter. Fuck you. You suck. I hate you, Peter.
Now, how is that related to Donald Trump? Well, you might know that one of the main campaigns in the election was she's for they, them, he's for you.
Yeah, I can play a little excerpt of it. It's pretty short.
Kamala is for they, them, Trump is for you.
Or,
something like that. Which is
it's gross. They're the worst. They're all the worst. So here it is. It's pretty quick.
What taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners?
Surgery.
Nope.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
Hell no, I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to that.
Kamala supports transgender sex changes in jail with our money.
Kamala even supports letting biological men compete against our girls in their sports. Kamala is for they, them. President Trump is for you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
I hate it. Thanks. I hate it.
And then, look, if it's not obvious, the whole point of that is that, the incumbents have a focus on minorities, but they aren't worried about the working family majority, quote unquote, majority that exists in society. That the whole concept of that, while it it does resonate politically, and obviously has in the United States, is false. Like, it's a false dichotomy, right? And no, people aren't smart enough to pick that up, or at least some people are.
There's I want to break it down a little bit, because it's like, it's infuriating on so many levels, because it plays into people's worst, like, it plays into like a kind of, fascism, what we were talking about before, the in group versus the out group, right? The othering of a like a minority group who, like, arguably has probably had it the toughest compared to all of the other, sort of minority groups and special interest groups. Like, I'd say transgender people are definitely up there in terms of their, like, personal victimization, what they've had to deal with at the hands of society. So to pick on them, but it's also like a fascistic thing, because it's like, it's us, the in group, versus the out group. We're otherizing, we're scapegoating. It's not the leadership, it's not the elites or whomever that's responsible. It's not the billionaires, it's not the richest man in the world who's responsible for your problems. It must be this tiny group of individuals over here that we can subordinate and victimize and blame. And whether it's, Mexicans at the border or transgenders at the gates, or who at the whoever it is that's coming to get you. But it's also like, it fundamentally, like, misses the point of the Kamala campaign. Like, at no point was Kamala, like, going to bat for the trans community. It wasn't part of her policy. No. It wasn't part of, like, anything that she was talking about. Like, for some reason, the conservatives have got this way of just taking like the most fringe left, far left position about anything, and then saying, like, oh, that's the Democratic Party's whole platform. It's like what she was talking about. There was, like, an interview from 2019 where she was trying to run left of a crowded primary field. And it was to the effect of, like, when you place it in this context, it makes more sense. Like, people who are in the care of the American judicial system, right, will continue to get, the medicine that they're on, right, being, hormone medication. People who are presenting as female aren't going to be, left to rot in a male prison. Right? Because I can imagine all of the problematic, horrendous, terrible things that would happen if you have someone that's female presenting in a male prison, right? Like, this, all it was is an acknowledgement that, like, the US government has a responsibility for the people that are in its care, and it's not sex change operations that are publicly, like, by the way, I think that would be based. I think that would be super courageous if the government was funding free healthcare all of a sudden for some reason. It's like, anyone who wants a sex change can have one. That'd be dope. Personally, I think that's great, but whatever. But it's not even like a policy that she had, that Democrats had, that Democrats were running on. Like, it's such a deliberate, nasty, mean-spirited manipulation. It's propaganda. Like, it is creating a thing that does not exist, and like, it's all of the worst terrible things about that kind of manipulative dark arts politics all in one ad. And the they-them thing, President Trump is for you, as though it's like pitting those things in opposition. Like, you can either be in favor of trans rights, them, or you can be in favor of... It's just like, the whole thing is just so fucking disgusting. Like,
and so for I guess the point of this is that was what was happening in the US.
And it works, which is the most frustrating thing, is it fucking works.
So Dutton's obviously the Conservative leader here in Australia. Opposition leader here in Australia.
I'd argue Albo's the Conservative leader. Yeah. Dutton's the far right crazy.
Yes,
leader.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the fact that he's trying some of these lines on, like, he's already, Dutton came out and said, oh, look, he did say something like the US election is, it's for them or whatever else. But at the same time, he's trying on some of these slogans.
He's trying it on, seeing if it works. The other one, yeah, 100%.
Was. People will be asking themselves the question, and it's a reasonable question to ask. Are you better off today than you were at the time Mr. Albanese was elected? And how much worse will it get in 3 years' time if he's re-elected, particularly in this is a classic one, minority government?
Oh, not a minority government filled with minorities. Oh, no, there's going to be browns everywhere.
He is, of course, talking about the deal with the Greens that
God, the constant scare campaign, this like deal with the Greens, they're going to have to deal with the Greens. Meanwhile, the Greens, if you're a working class person, if there is any political party out there that has your interest at heart, it's the Greens. The irony that, like, the company of big coal and, big, fossil fuel extraction and mining and agribusiness is going to be the savior of the working man. Like, it's just so obviously ludicrous on its face. And just like, oh, careful. If you vote for the Greens, you might get universal healthcare. You might get free dental. Ah, the horror.
Yeah.
Ah.
Not even free dental. Dental just might be in Medicare.
In Medicare,
yeah.
And to your point, Tom, Albanese has been very, very careful to like not tread the gender. Like he's I'm not getting into the gender thing.
He's taken the bait. Which is fucking. This drives me nuts. He's taken the bait and seems to be going out of his way. I find to kind of to not. Yeah, he's not saying yes, I am definitely pro-trans people, or no, I'm definitely not. He's walking that middle line of trying to like not get involved, but he's going out of his way to make sure that he's being seen as not getting involved.
Yeah. Yes. So on Sky News last year,
the same thing.
On Sky News last year, British broadcaster Piers Morgan asked the Prime Minister, "What is a woman?" The question is commonly used by anti-transgender activists to stump progressive politicians and ridicule what answer they may deliver. An adult female, unquote, was Albanese's reply, which happens to also be the answer the anti-trans movement accepts. Albanese's answer angered the trans and gender diverse community and led to accusations of dog whistling to anti-trans activists. So Anthony Albanese is like all in on like, no, I'm going to immediately just mirror the far right position on this, which is like trans people don't exist and also or shouldn't exist and therefore don't deserve support from the government. I don't know what exactly the point is there.
I don't know if it's like it was a calculated answer or whether or not he
1,000%
fumbled his way into that one.
No, an adult female is like very deliberately chosen language because what it's saying is it's trying to have it both ways. For the anti-trans people, it's trying to say like, oh no, I believe a woman is what you think it means, like an adult lady, right? But it's also not explicitly saying that trans people like don't exist. Or, you know, or talking about like chromosomes or getting bogged down in that kind of like scientific debate as to what exactly being a female is.
Yeah, so he didn't want to specify things like...
He didn't want to specify anything. An adult female, the end. That is a very carefully calibrated piece of political communication. He knew it was going to be asked that question and he had that answer ready. And I guess that's fine if you don't care about trans people and their existence or whatever. But like, I hate the idea that you know, having any kind of complexity is seen as dithering to the Australian public. Like we couldn't just acknowledge that like, well, gender's really complicated and there are people with X chromosomes and there are people with Y chromosomes. And some people feel as though that they were born into a gender representation, which doesn't match what they were assigned at birth. There are some people that are intersex, some people that have both genitalia, some people that thought they were one gender and actually turns out they're another because of how things happen. Like gender is incredibly complicated. And I also don't think how someone identifies and what PP is in their pants is any fucking interest of the federal government. Like I don't think they should be involved to the extent to which, you know, like we're talking about it and discussing it on a national platform as though it's like of any business of ours. Like I just find weird and abhorrent. So I guess he tried to answer it with, you know, an adult female, tried to short circuit the discussion by taking the conservative position. But it's like, for those on the left, I think a lot of people really feel abandoned by Anthony Albanese on that. And I just don't know. I don't know that kowtowing to the insane thing and not trusting the Australian public to have like a nuanced position on something to understand that there's complexity in an answer. I just don't think that's the right move because it's the same dynamic
that was one interview. Like,
okay, but he's used that answer multiple times. I don't think it was just that one time that he's used that answer, right? So,
but Tom, what else has Albanese done recently? There was the the census question, right?
Yeah, there was the backflip, then to backflip again.
The double backflip
question, yeah, that they
with a high degree of difficulty.
Perfect score.
Yeah,
perfect form.
They campaigned on updates to the census to include questions about people's gender identity, sexuality, data points that I frankly can't believe weren't being kind of captured already, but here we are.
Because if they acknowledge the reality that there's a certain, even if it is single digit percentage point, there was a certain, like a minority of Australians, a significant amount of people who appear somewhere on the diverse gender and sexuality spectrum. And if we measure that, then we might actually have to address them as though they're a political constituency rather than ignoring them / pretending they don't exist / pretending they shouldn't exist, right?
But yeah, they decided to, not the, I guess, at the generous read is just to not rock the boat about that. And then everyone kicked up a stink and they backflipped onto it. So they ended up doing the right thing, but looking like a bunch of cunts anyway. I think we said this at the time. We are like, so yeah, you ended up at your
the worst of both
anyway,
worlds. Yeah.
But now you have pissed off both your opponents and your supporters.
Yeah.
So the question is for Albanese, right? So Dutton's going to go hard right. He's going to start feeding more of this Trumpian style stuff into his campaign. What does Labor do?
Well,
like, how do they not go too left and piss
you just
off
run
some
a
people?
down the line center left campaign that is that acknowledges the complexity. No, because that's not what they did last time round. Last time they ran a centrist campaign. Okay, you need to have a little bit of courage. You need to have a narrative, a story about how Labor is not the institution, not the institution that needs to be thrown out, right? We don't want to throw the bums out election next year, which is what every election in the developed world has been this year in response to inflation, right? Is whoever's in power gets tossed out or gets massive swings against them. You need to say we are running a bold, progressive agenda. We're going to be centre-left. We're a steady pair of hands, but the system needs changed, and we are going to be the ones who change it. If you vote for Dutton, he's going to be an extremist. He believes all these crazy... Dutton was tamping down stuff in his cabinet this week about abortion. There's a section of his cabinet that's wanting to... Even seeing what happened up in Queensland... They're wanting to reignite the abortion debate. All of these terrible ideas that we've just seen playing out across the Atlantic, they're wanting to import over here. So all you need to do is say, we are, Menzies leftists. Remember Menzies? Even my mum could get on board with, not Menzies.
Keating?
No, before Keating. Bob Hawke. Everyone loved Bob Hawke. Right? And he ran as a progressive. Why? Because he gave things to the people. He introduced free university. He introduced, bold, sweeping changes because people felt that the way things wasn't working for them. And so the way to do it is to make big, bold changes. Okay, you're not going to get people excited and get up off the couch for a centrist, small target strategy. It's just not going to work this time. Like last time it was about getting Scott Morrison out. Scott Morrison was such an overwhelming, unmitigated fuck up of a failure that all they had to do was be not Scott Morrison and they would win. This is not the same this time because they've been at the helm for the last 3 years. People are seeing grocery bills going up. They've seen electricity, electricity's just come down because of the subsidies, but you know what I mean. They've seen their gas bills go up. They've seen everything in their lives get more expensive and maybe getting some wage increases, but they're not seeing themselves advance. What they need to talk about is a bold, progressive agenda that says, we want to see you grow and thrive. Okay. And here are the big changes we're going to make. If they run a small target strategy again, they're going to get thumped. They'll get fucking thumped because why would you vote for Diet Coke when you can have the real thing?
Speaking of big, bold strategies, the Greens have announced a policy this week, a plan.
This is exactly the shit you need to be announcing.
And they have announced, so Labor previously announced that they would wipe off something like a portion of 20%. Student debt.
Yeah,
20%.
20%, but only next time, only if you vote for us and we get back in.
The Greens have said they will announce 81 billion worth of student debt, which I think is like all of it or most of it.
All of it.
It's a large number. So the concept being is
enough to cover more than. So the Greens say someone who, on an average income, who has an average student debt of $27,600, mine is more than that, would save $5,500 each year under the scheme. Quote, enough to cover more than 6 months worth of groceries. Yeah, how's that for cost of living? Yeah, help debt, your HECS debt gone, and now you get an extra whatever it is, several $100s every month back into your paycheck that you can now spend that you can now deploy. And, to enhance the productive capacity of our economy. So much of our economy, monthly, wages are getting, there's all this economic drag that's happening as a result of so much of our money going straight into debt repayments. Like if the government wanted to unlock a bunch of productive capacity in the economy, a bunch of capital, a bunch of, spending, like stopping them having to pay the government, stopping students who have HECS debts from having to pay the government would be a massive boon. You would immediately...
I mean, it carries the one to some extent, right? Like it moves the debt would be wiped, but then, then you get gains back.
You're paying more in taxes.
In the economy.
Right? You're spending more. You're getting, all those people, you get goods and services tax from people spending more and doing things. Like it's called economic growth. That's how you grow the economy. Like,
yeah. I think, George, you're right. Like, it's exactly these kinds of bold changes are what people are calling for.
This is what I want to see.
Things like this. But we're hearing it from the Greens. We didn't hear
I don't want to hear centrist tinkering around the edges. Oh, you might get 20%. You might not. If we get the, we might get the lower house, but, we'll have to deal with the crossbench and maybe you'll get 20% off something maybe in 6 to 12 business months. I don't want to hear that. What I want to hear is universities are free now. That's what it needs to be of that level. Like people are sick of how things are. They want change. You need big change.
But George, how will they pay for it?
I don't want to fucking hear it. I don't want Malaka. I swear to fucking Christ, I'm going to come over to Elsternwick. I'm going to choke you out. I don't want to pay. Whenever we're getting fucking submarines, we're spending $385 billion on fucking submarines that we may never get from the United States now, depending on how Trump personally feels about it. And we don't ever wonder, how are we going to fucking pay for the submarines? It never comes up, not a single fucking time, not a single question. How are we going to justify the spend on the submarines? How are we going to justify the spend on the jets? No, it's defense, so it gets a big red fucking rubber stamp and we never talk about it again. Anytime that it comes to doing something for the people who are paying all of the fucking taxes in this economy, it's how we're going to pay for, the government turns out its pockets and a $385 billion submarine contract falls out. It goes, don't look at that.
Or 60 billion they find behind the couch in
JobSeeker. Like I'm infuriated by the debate. Whenever there's a question about a social good that we need to fund, it's how we're going to find the money. When it comes to boys playing with their toys, here's a new fucking helicopter. Here's 500 mil. Go nuts. Like it just drives me absolutely fucking batty.
I don't want to say that I triggered George then, but I would say mission accomplished.
I'm trying so hard not to wake my son.
I laid the trap and you walked right into it. But to be fair, the way they're going to pay for it, or what they've said, is that they're basically going to raise company tax rates.
Great, good.
Which is probably not a bad thing.
If people are like, where's all the extra money going to come from? Tax big business properly.
Or just reduce all the deductions they can make. Just
get rid of them. Get rid of the deductions.
Close the loopholes. Close the fucking loopholes.
But I fear that you won't see this kind of bold thinking from Labor because they're just in bed. They're in bed with the same fucking companies that the Liberals are in bed with. And that's exactly why, and we'll talk about this in our next story, where they're talking about limiting campaign contributions and things like that. But they're to a certain extent, I fear that most people see the Labor Party and the Liberal Party as two sides of the same coin. And that's where you get all of this dissatisfaction with government. That's where you get people voting,
Because they're the establishment, right?
There's the establishment. Labor and Liberal, by definition, are the establishment. And so that's why you've seen declining vote share. Even though the Labor won the last election, they still lost primary vote share amongst the electorate. Because people are pissed. They're not happy with how things are going. They definitely don't want Scott Morrison. But it wasn't an affirmative vote for Anthony Albanese either.
Why, the Teals did so well.
Exactly right.
Right? People were... I know I was in one of those constituencies. I wanted the third option.
Yeah.
The difference with the Teals in Australia is that they're generally all well-educated, not crazy.
We're lucky. They could easily be fucking psychos.
Yeah.
In the States.
Yeah, that's the dangerous with the I know we talked about the US election that people did third-party votes as kind of a protest and everything, but their system's not set up for that.
No.
To be able to do a preferential vote for a third party but still trickle down to the not insane ones. But here in Australia, the whole allowing third-party candidates is great because yes, it does force this competition of ideas. unfortunately, it leaves the door open to your Pauline Hansons
Yeah.
and all that sort of stuff. But that's democracy, baby.
Yeah, but I'd rather Pauline Hanson have like 2 seats rather than like the whole, half a chamber. You know what I mean? Which is what happens in a first past the vote, first past the post system.
First past the post system. It's like, oh yeah, your vote for Pauline Hanson means the major Nazi party gets in.
Yeah, legit.
Well, interesting on that point in terms of the establishment and minor parties. And I don't know whether this is a big swing, but Labor is introducing a bill to Parliament on Monday to change electoral laws with caps on donations and campaign spending, which has been flagged for a number of months now.
The anti-Clive Palmer bill, essentially.
The sit on and spin bill for Clive Palmer is taking off.
Fucking stop throwing all your money behind batshit fuckwits Clive bill.
So
Tom, what are the main points?
Well, so the main point...
George has talked enough. Okay, so Tom, can you fucking say things so George can't?
Yeah, the big point here is that they're trying to just stop people being able to funnel, that people with deep pockets who really just want to absolutely fuck the system can't just funnel all the money that they have to really shake things up. Like, I mean, we all got fucking text messages from Clive Palmer and saw his yellow billboards everywhere, and it didn't really amount to much. They did get that fuckhead, what's his name, Babbitt into Parliament, who's recently just been throwing slurs left and right on Twitter with impunity. So great one, Clive. But yeah, so what the changes are, rather than kind of having this, from what I understood, like relatively uncapped kind of
you can
donation strategy.
Yeah.
They've instead come up with sort of it sounds a bit complicated on its head, but I think I've wrapped my head around it. There's a really handy diagram in this ABC article. We'll link.
I love a good flow chart. Yep,
and this flow chart really helped me understand it. So they've essentially proposed caps on how much can be donated depending on the perspective you're kind of looking at, whether you're a donor, whether it's to a candidate directly or to a party, and then also the way that they can be spent. So from a donor's perspective, you can only donate a maximum of $20,000 to a candidate.
Mm-hmm.
You could donate $20,000 to as many candidates as you like, but to a specific candidate, just the cap of $20,000. So you can't just be throwing millions and millions and millions into one specific person's pocket. But you could spread it, per year, but you could spread it to many candidates if you want. And that also extends to political parties. So you can so they can donate across like several parties, 20K each, but they can't put more than 20K into one particular party.
Okay.
So in terms of, and then also, there's a cap as well as to how much a donor can spend with across all the different donations that they do. So no more than 20K to a specific party or candidate, but no more than $600,000 total in the calendar year. However, they decide to divvy that up.
Sorry, that the 600,000 numbers from companies, individuals, or business groups that wanted to donate. That's their cap. So if you're Get Up or something like that, you can only give a max of $600,000 to whomever.
Yeah, to whomever. So, okay. And then from the actual politician's standpoint, things change a little bit as well, where a political candidate can only spend a maximum of $800,000 on their campaign.
Per candidate.
Like per candidate. And for a political party, they have a maximum of 90 million spend. But of that 90 million spend, each candidate involved in the party can only spend 800K maximum each. So yeah, it breaks down. Like, I know it's going to be so much fun for the bean counters, right?
I was going to say, do you know who does really well out of this?
Casey Newton's got a fucking hard on. Yeah. Casey Newton has got a rock hard penis right now listening to this.
So what this
Casey Briggs or Casey Newton someone else that I'm missing?
The numbers guy.
Casey
Maybe
Briggs.
it is Casey Briggs. Who's Casey Newton?
I don't know.
Casey Briggs is the him and Anthony Green are like the ABC numbers guys.
Oh yeah. I'm wrong journalist, Casey. My bad.
Yeah. So people have been calling this like sort of the anti-Clive Palmer legislation because he spent something like $123 million
Yeah, it's insane.
on his party last election.
How many seats
cycle.
did they get though? Didn't they only get like
one.
one or two seats?
I'm only aware of like one United Australia Party person, and that was the aforementioned Babbitt and his.
So how much did he spend? What was that number again?
123
million.
Yeah, million there. So, and that's a bit, and that's more than what the two major political parties spent. That the Liberal the coalition spent about 132 million, and Labor 116 million.
He
So
honestly could have given every Australian $5 instead,
Yep, easy.
and we'd all be better off.
Yeah, I mean, and I would have thanked him for it. That's
Well, would you have voted for him though, Tom?
Oh
That's the
hell no!
question.
At like $5, that's nearly a whole coffee in Melbourne.
That's 2/3 of a coffee. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so under these proposals, all three of those three parties mentioned, like United Australia and the Liberal Party and Labor Party, would have to reduce their spending. They all spent more than 90 million in this last instance. But what it would curtail is that Clive Palmer himself could not funnel more than $600,000 into the campaign
his own
personally. And that's where so much how they got such proclivity in the election cycle was just because of his super deep pockets, being how rich he is.
There's also some rules around. I think it's like how many, if you've got a seat or how many votes you get, like there's funding allocated that way as well. Is that part of this deal, or is that the current?
I don't know if that's part of this change. I know that there is a thing of your vote share in a previous election does impact sort of how much funding you're allocated.
Funding. So yeah,
sort of sense. I don't know if there's any changes to that being proposed.
So the government is proposing to help parties and candidates manage the additional administrative burden caused by the changes by boosting public funding per vote by about $5.
That's meant to cover
rate of $3.
It's meant to cover the shortfall, basically. So, yes, we're going to lose a bunch of money from private companies, but we're going to get public funding from the government in order to make up that shortfall.
And that funding is available to candidates that win a primary vote of 4% or more.
Yeah. So that's where the thing we talked about before of our system, like the preferential voting system. You're like, oh, the Greens will never be like prime minister or whatever. Why would I bother voting for them? It's like, because that vote share can actually boost their campaign the next time round, and that's how parties can grow over time. So it's still a support there.
The concern I have is this is basically a pro-party piece of legislation.
Yeah.
If you're a political party, you're significantly advantaged as a result of this. You get more money, your power gets consolidated, and people like the pesky Greens, the pesky teal independents, are going to have a much harder time of it. They're going to be climbing uphill because they've now got this $800,000 cap in terms of their spending. They've got limits as to how much they can raise in the first place. Most teal independents spent more than $800,000 in the last election cycle. So if you take that into consideration, it's going to be very hard for independents in future to be able to get in without the aid of a party system in the first place. That's why the Liberals are at least in principle supporting this piece of legislation, because they benefit as much from it as Labor does. They are consolidating power in the two-party system.
It entrenches the power base, which is my main criticism of it. Is that I get what they're doing. It's not great you don't want to buy elections.
Yeah.
But you also want to create a system that's fair. And I don't know whether
so the
that
reason
does
the reason the Liberals are fond of it is because it locks out people, what was the guy who funded Climate 200? The activist Simon Holmes a Court. So the Liberals see that and go, okay, this means we can get Simon Holmes a Court out of the process, right? With his Climate 200, sort of pro-teal independent funding. And Labor looks at Clive Palmer. So basically it's just each major party looking at each other's billionaires and going, okay, well, if I can get him out of the mix, if I can get them out of the mix, then we can consolidate power around
It also means things like Get Up and Rise Up Australia and Advance Australia, all these political action groups are limited now as to what they
kneecaps them to a certain extent. The thing I'm most concerned about is the independents. Like, what are the independents going to do if it's much harder for them to raise and they've got a cap as to how much they can spend? It's going to be much harder for those. And I think the Teals have very much been a net positive in this election cycle. So I want to try and encourage that as much as possible, to have community independents, people who aren't necessarily bound by a political party being empowered to, get up and be representatives for their community. That's what democracy is. That's what it's supposed to be in the first place, right?
What's stopping the Teals? I know at the moment they're not
from becoming a party.
they're just a bunch of people with the same branding.
They're not a party.
But why couldn't they just become a party?
They could, but there's a stink. There's a stink on parties. We don't
have any policies.
There's a stink on parties right now. People don't. Well, that's exactly what we were talking about before: political incumbency and people, wanting to throw a bomb at the system and wanting big change. That's the promise of an independent: is they represent you and your community. As soon as you get involved in a party, then it just becomes another Labour. That's inevitably. But listen, you know what I mean?
Why can't they just create a party that just is
because it's not a party? Because they believe different things.
They can do whatever they want, but they can do. But that's the thing. You don't have to have a unified vision.
Because that's what a party is, Adam. Is that there's some sort of unity of purpose.
I'm trying to hack the system here. Do you get what I'm saying?
I get what
the no party party. I get what you're saying. It's just idiotic.
It's just a form. It's just a fucking form that you have to get some endorsements for. People have to second it.
Yeah,
it's just a piece of paper.
It's against the whole ethos of the project. The community independence movement was specifically predicated on not being involved in the party system.
No,
but you got to adapt.
You can adapt. It's the let's get married for citizenship, but we can fuck other people principle.
Yeah, exactly.
Just let's just tick it. On
it's the polyamorous throuple of relationships.
Yeah, we're not actually married.
Just make a party, but just on paper. It's just a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you can have people that just go and really love the local community down Bayside Melbourne, and that are just really keen to just sit on that Liberal seat forever.
Yeah. I was thinking. I think the points that you guys just raised was what I was thinking as well. In that, because this does kind of make it more difficult for sort of outsiders to just start buying up or funding like a crazy independent or but it also sort of caps with these max donations of 600K and also or more than 20K to the political parties per year, kind of reduces the amount that say outside forces could be donating to the parties.
Yeah, which is good.
So that's why, I'm thinking about it in the sense of it might reduce the amount of dependence that say a party like Labour would have on the big donors,
which is good.
Fuel magnates and all that sort of stuff. And so, but yes, on the flip side, it means that groups like Climate 200 and all that sort of stuff can't also be doing that to independents.
Well,
and others.
here's the thing.
Let me finish the point. It's the feeling of it stops the people I hate doing something that lets them continue doing something that I hate. But the catch of that is the people that I like can't do it either.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's sort of then, but I guess I'd be a really fucking huge hypocrite if it's I only like people manipulating the system with their deep pockets when they're doing it in my favor. Yeah, kind of doesn't sit well with me. So that's why I'm leaning more to I like these changes.
I think there's a way.
What's to stop?
There's a way to have the good things without the bad things. You know what I mean? There's a way to have if you had publicly funded elections, there's a way to do it. When we talked about Peter Malinauskas in South Australia had those changes where it's it's all about public funding. And if you're an independent candidate, you can still get public funding through these mechanisms. There's a way of doing it. I feel like where it would be more equitable. I love the disclosure. All the stuff in the disclosure is great. More frequent disclosures, more fulsome disclosures, especially leading up to an election. It comes up to daily disclosures. The idea of basically what we had before, where it's 40% of what a party gets donated gets disclosed, and then most of it isn't for 18 months. That's a complete horseshit nonsense system, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Do away with that. Disclosure rules, I'm all for that. What I'm concerned about is the fact that it is clearly a bill that is meant to entrench power with the two major parties. And I think the Teals are a good influence, and I worry that they get edged out as a result of this.
Yeah.
Which is on purpose, right?
Yeah.
What's to stop Get Up just having a meeting off the books with Labor, agreeing on a strategy, and then someone just pumping $500 million into Get Up to do the or more than that, let's say $1 billion into running the campaign.
Well, I think that's probably what you're
for them.
I mean, forget the collaboration element.
Does this just create super PACs?
I think it may have the sideways effect of just encouraging people to donate directly to the political action committees rather than the candidates, which is less bad. I do think there is a corrupting element to having candidates and individuals being donated to by but as you say, Adam, it does kind of like shift. It just kind of shifts the money around. It doesn't get the money out of politics. It just kind of like moves it around, like.
Remember, like when the voice referendum happened, one of the major influences was, and I've got to remember I think it was Advance Australia, or Advance, whatever it was called. Like that was the thing that shifted the ground. It wasn't the coalition. Like I don't think the Liberal Party had much of an influence in that. It was the quote unquote grassroots
Outside
campaign
actors,
that changed the course of that political outcome. So I don't know. I don't think this is a good solution. I don't like it. I think I agree with your point, George, and I think the thing I just said as well. Like I think it's going to actually just shift the money around.
Yeah.
And
so
I don't.
Yeah, it certainly is. That's sort of the feeling I've been grappling with as well. It's a thing of it can work if people don't also exploit it, but like everything,
They're going to. Of course, they're going to exploit it.
Yeah, of course they are, because we have no faith in anybody. So, but whether or not that's a reason to not do, I don't know. Like, yeah, it's tricky, and also I think this is one of those things that they're wanting to squeeze in the last like 2 seconds that they.
That's what concerns me. Yeah.
They're just trying to do it without maybe the full proper process. They're also trying to introduce. I think in there they want to have you have to tell the truth in ads, which it's crazy. That's not the
truth.
case.
Yeah, truth in political advertising. Yeah,
I love this little headline in this in this article. Sorry, the ABC, like truth in ad laws will also be introduced like at the next sitting thing. Unlikely to progress. Gee, I wonder why.
Yeah.
The
problem is with reforming a system is that you're relying on political power that was gleaned from the system, right? From that system. So everyone is, no matter which side of politics you're on, each side, whenever they're in power, is always kind of reluctant to do so in a way that would potentially disadvantage them in future election cycles. But something needs to be done. Like and the integrity advocate, Dr. Catherine Williams, in this article, basically sort of says like, the transparency stuff is great. Like, let's leave all the other stuff till future election cycles. Once we've had like a proper consultation period, you want to get independents in on this. You want to get like, you don't just want to ram it through in the last sitting weeks of Parliament at the end of the year.
Which I think they will.
Which is what they're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
Like they're trying to go, don't look too hard at this. This is our version of cybersecurity legislation this year. We're just going to jam it through in the last couple of weeks before Chrissy, and we'll see you next year, right? Like, I think it needs more consultation. I don't think it's where it needs to be. But look, I think it is beneficial to have a situation like if I was faced with two systems, one where Clive Palmer can dump $123 million into an election, and one where he can't. I think the latter thing is better for the health of our democracy. Now, all the other stuff that goes along with it, I'm not really thrilled about that. But like I said, disclosure, real-time transparency, all that stuff I think is really good. But I want some provision in there for independence because I think the Teals are a net benefit, and I'm not seeing it.
Yeah.
But it's all right. No one listens to us anyway, so it's just going to get fucking jammed through, and we'll deal with the consequences at the next election cycle. So
that's right. Just a net increase in your blood pressure.
It only goes up, and like stonks, it only goes up and to the right. My blood pressure.
Yeah. You definitely want to pump and dump your blood pressure. I'm sure that's healthy. Is it? I don't know.
Speaking of high blood pressure, Alex Jones.
Yeah, I was going to say, speaking of net goods, Alex Jones is having his entire world rocked, which is a net good because Alex Jones is a colossal piece of shit. So he's going through some bankruptcy proceedings at the moment following, him owing more than $1 billion to after having defamed the victims of the Sandy Hook school shooting. From 2012, and as a result, he's filed bankruptcy and everything's being like liquidated and sold off. And the big news from this week was that his website, his media platform,
Media Empire
Infowars, was purchased, and it was purchased by The Onion, and this is excellent. Like, just
who are The Onion for
very good.
Who are The Onion? The Onion are like the Onion. Are so prolific as a satire like comedy made up news site that they are used. They're like what's the word for it? Like they're the Esky of fake news satire websites. Like when you tell someone about the Batuta Advocate here in Australia, you're like, it's like The Onion. Like people will say
it is the
Onion.
epitome of satirical news satire.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I had to do the other thing the other day where I had to go. People were like, "What's The Onion?" I'd be like, "It's like Batuta," and they were like, "Oh, okay." It was
So
like a
Batuta
reverse.
is like The Onion. Like The Onion was definitely here first.
You know what? Good on the Batuta Advocate. That's great market share for them. Anyway, so yeah, they have purchased Infowars, which is
Just
amazing.
incredible.
It's just incredible. I believe they have said that they plan to like relaunch it later on down the line, and that its exclusive launch advertiser would be the gun violence prevention organization Everytown for Gun Safety.
Love it.
So yeah, a quote from The Onion in their statement was, "Everytown will continue to raise awareness on Infowars' channels about gun violence prevention and present actual solutions to our nation's gun violence crisis, including bipartisan common sense measures and public safety initiatives backed by Everytown." So as a real fuck you to Alex Jones, they're gonna turn it into pro-gun safety.
The best part about this was that this all happened while Alex Jones was live on air.
Yeah, he found out live on air and promptly lost his shit.
They walked into the studio and told him to stop recording while like he was recording. Like the whole thing went down sort of live, and then bloody what's his name, Bannon, Steve Bannon, you know, was like they went and recorded somewhere else apparently.
Yeah, it was a real Tsar the Nicholas II situation where the barbarians at the gates trying to get in and drag him off. Like, just delightful.
Champagne.
And as I understand, the Onion actually, like, you know, there were a few buyers gunning for it. They haven't said sort of who the other like buyers were. They say they're like, you know, a mixture of people who were like supporters of Alex Jones trying to save it, or you know, others of his detractors. But that the Onion elicited help, like got help from families of 8 of the victims. Like,
basically they from what I understand, they had some sort of arrangement with them where they said, look, you guys might get slightly less for this, but we think it would be better going to us than it would be going to like one of Alex Jones's billionaire mates, which enabled them to have like so basically what happened is, so he had this judgment against him for $1 billion USD. He hasn't been paying it, and so basically they've taken possession of his assets. One of those assets being, you know, Infowars, the company. Now it's gone up to an auction, but a bankruptcy auction, at which point, you know, anyone could put in an offer, and the highest offer would win. Obviously, in a situation where Alex Jones would never willingly sell his business to the Onion, right? It's only via the mechanism of this bankruptcy auction that they've had the option to do so, and because they were the highest bidder, especially with the concessions that they got from the Sandy Hook parents, survivors' parents, then, you know, they were able to make it work. So that's how this all sort of
which I think
which is just the funniest possible result, right? Is that Infowars becomes like a satirical news website a la The Onion. It's just like the perfect, like everyone, even the Sandy Hook parents heard that, were like, that's pretty funny. That'd be pretty good. That's the ultimate fuck you to Alex Jones.
I was very touched to sort of learn that the Sandy Hook family's got behind it. Like, it's not just, the Onion saw the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever.
Yeah.
They also, like, you know, worked with them on this. And I love just some quotes from Ben Collins, the CEO of The Onion. Has said that he wants to replace Infowars' relentless barrage of disinformation with The Onion's relentless barrage of humor. The Onion is proud to acquire Infowars, and we look forward to continuing its storied tradition of scaring the site's users with lies until they fork over their hard, cold cash.
Amazing.
The Onion promotes itself as the world's leading news publication, offering highly acclaimed, universally revered coverage of breaking national, international, and local news events, and it claims to have 4.3 trillion daily readers.
Amazing.
4.3 trillion with a T.
Yes, which is more people than have ever existed.
Sometimes good things happen, and I can't wait
Just
to
delightful.
see how this plays out.
This is another quote from their editorial that they put together announcing the purchase from The Onion. So talking about InfoWars, with a shrewd mix of delusional paranoia and dubious anti-aging nutrition hacks, they, InfoWars, strive to make life both scarier and longer for everyone. A commendable goal. They are a true unicorn capable of simultaneously inspiring public support for billionaires and stoking outrage at an inept federal state that can both assassinate JFK and can't put a man on the moon.
Yeah, so good.
Incredible. So good.
I love that comparison as well.
Yeah. Like the deep state is smart enough to pull off the most sly assassination of all time, and also like somehow can't put a man on the moon.
Make no mistake, this is a coup for our company and a well-deserved victory for multinational elites the world over.
Amazing.
I after this, I kind of want to go to a bankruptcy auction.
Just to see what you can get.
Yeah.
People go to those.
You
can get stuff. Restaurants. I remember reading a passage in one of, I think it was Anthony Bourdain's book, about restaurants, and like the cheap way to get a restaurant up and started was to like go to the bankruptcy option of another restaurant who's going out of business and buy all their gear on the cheap.
Yeah, right.
And so they get these like cooktops and all this gear that you need for but it was like a grim scene because there's always bankruptcy auctions. So you're aware, you as a new restaurant owner are going into this knowing that there's a lot of people ahead of you failing, and it's like a dangerous industry to be going into. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Good. I just imagine it's like Antiques Roadshow. Just like this series of cookware was used in the restaurant for less than 3 months before they ran out of money.
Well, that's like people also talking about like police auction stuff. Like, I wonder if it's like in The Simpsons, can you end up with Snake's car? Can you end up with like the awesome sports car that
100%.
runs on premium?
Have you guys heard of Depop? On that note, we have been, we are, we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that have, do, or ever will exist at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and mother flipping TikTok. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
And you can follow me down to Blue Sky because I have no idea what the fuck that is. What is Blue Sky?
It is a non-fascist Twitter alternative. Well, yet. I don't know what's going on there. Yeah, for now. For now. Yeah, it's like how evolution. I saw this video which talks about how on a long enough evolutionary timeline, everything basically turns into a crab. It's just like a design that seems to work well in nature.
Yeah.
On a long enough timeline, every micro blogging website ends up turning into a fascist hellscape. That's just kind of how it works. But at least for now, we can get at least 8 or 9 good years out of it before it turns into X. So look, I'll take it.
I was researching Blue Sky the other day. I was like, oh yeah, people seem to be jumping over to it. I should understand this more, at least, like what's going on.
It's exactly the same as Twitter. It is a Twitter clone.
What I wanted to know was just like, does it have an app, or is it just on still only just on a website? So I started typing into Google, does Blue Sky, and it auto prompted allow not safe for work. I was like, good. The kids are all right. Priorities are in line.
No, this is integral before I sign up for a new social media website. Can I still follow Riley Reid? Thanks for listening, guys. I love your faces. I'll see you next week. If you know, you know.